Okay, so apparently people have decided that a word that I used quite a lot as just a playground insult when I was a kid is suddenly an ableist slur. Now, I barely understand what the word ableist means. And I fail to understand why there's anything wrong with delineating the difference between someone who is perfectly functional and someone who has a disability. Um, Clearly, if you have a disability, you have a problem. This should be obvious to anybody. Um, the really weird thing about this particular term, spaz, is that it's not actually ableist. It has nothing to do with your personal ability, at least from my perspective. And I may be wrong about that, or it may be a matter of interpretation. But just to explain, if someone asks me what a disability is, I say, well, it's something permanent that results in a lack of functionality versus the average human. Uh, Lacking a limb, blindness, uh, being born deaf mute. Now, one of my great uncles was born what we called nerve deaf at the time. He could hear somewhat, but his hearing was extremely limited and generally in the very low frequency bass range. Um, would I call him disabled? Fuck no. There are some personal, I suppose you could call them family legends about him, uh, and some of the feats of strength he used to perform. I know for a fact that I don't fear anybody, but if you asked me if there was one person on this planet I wouldn't want to have hit me, it would be my great uncle Freeman. I would take a punch from Mike Tyson first. That's how much I would be worried about having Uncle Freeman hit me. My Uncle Freeman was in his early 80s, I believe, when he died. And up until a few years before that, he was still regularly hiking into the woods with an axe and coming back with logs. Wasn't carting them, he was carrying them. That doesn't strike me as someone who's disabled. Yes, he was, unfortunately, because of the economic state of Newfoundland when he was born and the relative remoteness and isolation of the community he was born in and the poverty of the family he was born into, he wasn't able to access any sort of um, services or aids that would have ameliorated that condition. No one ever learned sign language for him, nothing like that. And it's quite possible a simple hearing device may have, a hearing aid may have sorted the problem out. We simply don't know. But I can remember very clearly when I was a kid that my great Uncle Freeman, and I call him Uncle Freeman, would be able to take a full kerosene drum, throw on one shoulder, and go on, while two other grown men were struggling to lift the damn thing. Yeah. Disabled? No. Now, to come to the term spaz again. When I was a kid, we called each other spaz all the time. And that wasn't because we thought we were going to have seizures or anything like that. It was because someone who was extremely socially awkward, which, I'm sorry, that's not a disability. There are ways to fix that. But someone who was extremely socially awkward, uh, whether they simply didn't know how to talk to people or didn't dress with any sort of fashion sense. Generally, that was more what it was used for, was someone who had no fashion sense, or someone who was just generally gauche, to take a to borrow a word from the French. Even though at the time we weren't even using that term. um, but now fans of musicians are crying for changes to art. Um, no, you're not going to tell me that Da Vinci's Mona Lisa is too white, so it needs to be fixed, any more than you're going to tell me that Elvis's blue suede shoes was stolen from a black man, which arguably it probably was. Uh, but that doesn't mean you cancel Elvis. That means you take the lesson from that piece of information. You go, okay, well, stealing music is bad. No shit. Stealing in general is bad. But the idea that, and it's not just music. This music is now just the newest. Let me just lift this a little bit. Music is now just the newest arena where this shit is happening. Those of us who've been following pop culture, who've been geeks, we've seen this in a ton of our fandoms, where some infiltrating influence, whether it's SJWs, whether it's any number of things, communists, you name it, where these people have inserted themselves into the fandom, gatekeeping matters, and then they've essentially taken it over and ruined it for everybody. I'm 100% sure that no one is enjoying Star Trek Discovery. I know for a fact that no one from the original fan base is really enjoying it. And if you are, I question how much of a fan you really are. And yes, that means I'm gatekeeping you. Deal with it. Sucks to be you. But this same sort of infiltrating force is being seen in music now. These people who have run out of pop culture properties to ruin and have hit the wall with Lord of the Rings, now they're getting into music as the target. Well, that's a different kind of art. And yeah, pop culture, to be fair, not really the highest of arts. Music, bit of a different story. And it's an easy leap to see someone going from pop culture to music. It's an easy inference then to see that that same thing could happen to literature, which it has, to science, which it has, to politics, oh geez, to sculpture. Uh, Actually, sculptures long had that problem. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are many statues that have been created, modern art, uh, pieces that have been created that have been decried and altered. Uh, I imagine there's an easy get out of here, mosquito. I imagine it would be a simple web search to find a few. But with music, people really need to calm down. It's just a song. Okay, there's a word in that song you don't like. That's fine. Don't listen to it. If a comedian makes an off-colored joke and people decry them, now they're getting them punished by the law. Are you mental? It's a joke. Grow up. And for the judge in the Count Dankula case, what the fuck is wrong with you? You forced a context onto something that, in the context of the video, was clearly said to be humorous. But you decided, against the evidence you were presented, it's a terrible judge, that his intent was not to be joking. Okay, so are you telepathic? And what? Psychic in another way? What is that? When someone sees things that they couldn't possibly have seen. Like someone is aware of something they couldn't possibly have seen. Clairvoyant, that's the word. Yeah, are you telepathic and clairvoyant? To know what was actually in his mind, as opposed to what he said in the video? The point I'm trying to get at is, if you don't like something, you don't seek to change it. You either A, ignore it, or B, go and do something, go and find something of your own, or that you prefer, or C, you go and make your own. Now, I'm sure there are great writers out there who want to make things for SJWs. By all means, go ahead. But why would you go to an established property? Why would you ride those coattails? That just takes some of your prestige away. If... Let me think. Okay. If you wanted to create a gay superhero from whole cloth, that would make sense. Because then, if you're the creator, you're in control of exactly what experiences that character has had his entire existence. But if you take a character like, say, Iceman, and suddenly make him gay after he's had... Mosquito. After he's had dozens, potentially, of heterosexual relationships. How far back? I think Iceman was created in the 60s, maybe the early 70s. That's almost, actually, that is over 50, well, it's around 50 years at least. So you have 50 years of history for a character, and you're going to ignore all that and make the character gay all of a sudden. Kind of doesn't make sense. Plus, you're going to alienate your fan base. Whereas, even within the same universe, you could simply create a character that was gay. And if they're well written, got good motivations, then there you go. You'll have a... I'll get them one of these times. Oh, there's 2 or 3. Oh, those are flies. Well, you get to live for now. But if you create a character that's well written, crafted well, then the character will be successful. Not because they're gay, but because they're a good character. Because they're a quality character. But it's becoming more and more obvious that the people who are doing these retcons, these alterations, they don't care about making good characters. They care about inserting themselves. Self-insertion is one of the sins of storytelling. You inevitably, when you self-insert, you inevitably end up creating a lower quality character. Because the character doesn't appeal to everyone. Wolverine is a short, hairy Canadian with metal claws. And yet, everyone on the planet loves him. Everyone who's read the stories in any kind of depth. And the reason for that isn't because he's short, white, hairy, got claws. None of that. It's because Wolverine's arc, for lack of a better term, it's relatable. This is someone who struggles with emotional issues, his berserker rages, as it used to be described in the comics, the animal or the beast within. This is something every human being has to struggle with because we're an evolved creature. We are wild animals somewhere in our DNA. And because of that, we always have these instincts and urges and tendencies to violence. It's always there. But what matters with Wolverine and why he appeals is because we can take control of those urges and fight them. And that's what used to really draw me into the Wolverine stories. We are not our natures. We are what we choose to be. One of the best aspects of Wolverine, and I'm going to stick to Wolverine for now because I've gotten hooked on this, but one of the best aspects of Wolverine isn't the fact that he's heterosexual. It isn't the fact that he's traveled the world or that he's damn near immortal or that if he gets cut, he heals in moments. None of that matters. Not when it comes to why the character is really appealing at a basic level. The character is appealing at a basic level because he is emotionally relatable. There's something in his makeup that appeals, and not just appeals, but is something that we all experience. I saw someone not too long ago talking about how this brand new character, a brand new creation, was the first disabled superhero. And all I could think was Charles Xavier, Daredevil. You know, there's probably a few more at least. I think there was one called Argus quite some time ago who was also blind. But I got you that time, fucker. But my point is that if all you're doing is taking one trait and plopping that on top of a historic character, then you're destroying the character. And you're not just destroying the character, you're destroying the relatability. Because you've taken a character that was whole and poked out a hole in the middle, like a donut, and you filled it with something that just doesn't belong there. Sauerkraut. And if you're the kind of person who likes sauerkraut with your donuts, seek professional help. You're a spaz. But, yeah, this idea that the word spaz is suddenly so bad. It's probably dialectic or dialect based here in Newfoundland, and as far as I know, through most of North America. If you want a great example of a spaz in pop culture, Steve Urkel. Steve Urkel was a spaz. Totally socially awkward. Had no idea how to talk to women, for example. Didn't have the greatest grasp on reality when it came to his relations with women. Garbage truck. But all of that said, the appeal of Steve Urkel, like the appeal of Wolverine, was because there was something about him everybody could relate to. For me, it was his nerdiness. His love of cheese definitely didn't hurt. I do love my cheese. In fact, I'm probably about 33% cheese at this point. But one of the things that really kind of started to destroy that character was when they did a retcon alteration and created Stefan Urkel. Now, it was made very clear that this was essentially a different character. So then it did kind of work. But wasn't the best. Yeah, not so much. But I think more than anything, people who want something different should be wanting something new. You shouldn't demand that a company like Marvel or DC, or a singer like Beyonce or Lizzo, or an artist like Da Vinci, or, I don't know, maybe Rodin. Maybe the thinker is too, I don't know, white for some people. It's ironic, it's a bronze. Dude's clearly not white. But my point being, if you want something that's representative of you, don't have something changed. Make something. Or find someone who's making something that you approve of, or that you appreciate, or that you relate to. Support them. Support the new creators. For me, I've read a little bit of the synopsis about the character Isom from the Rippaverse. The first book actually should have been released about now, I think. Though I may have that wrong. I've kind of fallen away from following that story. But I find the character relatable on a couple of personal levels. Here's a newsflash. I'm not black. You may not have noticed, but I'm not particularly black. Yet I can relate to certain aspects of this character that I know about. Weird, huh? Anyway, that's going to be it for me this morning. Hope you're all doing well. I hope you continue to do well. Rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Love you all. Bye-bye.